This is a guide to behavioral segmentation in Motif. We're working with the Motiflix dataset, which includes the kind of events you'd see with a video streaming service. And we're trying to segment our users today on their behavior in terms of watching. And we're a streaming service, so we have an instinct that there's a set of people that are binge watchers that watch a lot of things during a session, and people that are casual watchers that maybe watch just one thing in each session. And so we're picking up where we were in a lot of other videos with our data sessionized. If you want to understand that better, go back to the duration video. Today we have one row per session, and we're going to start looking at the watch end event. Now, we're doing watch end because if we did watch start, we might find a lot of people that have started things many times but don't finish them. But the hallmark for our binge behavior is that people are actually finishing a lot of different things. So we're using watch end. And we actually want to see them do that multiple times, so we're going to use a split. And so we've already split the data, each user, into sessions. And when we do another split, now we're splitting those sessions into every watch end. So basically every completion of a video. And then if you remember in the intensity video, when we do a split, the reverse operation is to combine, to sort of restitch those things back together. And when we do a combine, we get this moment in which to create some aggregate data about the split. So in this case, I'm going to capture the number of movies watched in that session. And you might remember that when you do a split, you get this split index and split count. Split count is the maximum value of the index, and the index is the number, the index of that particular split. So I could do max of split count or split index, and I'm going to get the same value here. So now I have each user split into sessions. I briefly split them into each watch, but then I combine them back together, counting up the total number of watch ends that they have. And now you can see it on each session record. I have the session movies watched. This user 1 in this session, this user 0 in their first session, 2 in their second, 0 first, 1, 3, 0, 0, and so on. Okay, now my segments are going to take place on the user level. So now I'm going to combine actually again. And this is interesting because this combine is happening after we did a split and combine. So we had user, we split it into session, and we broke the sessions up into watches, stitched them back together, and now we're going to stitch the users together. So I'm going to do another combine here. And this time I'm going to look at the average movies watched in a session. So average session movies equals average of session movies watched. So I'm taking that value that we just created, which is the number of movies watched in each session, and I'm averaging it up for each user. So this user, 1 per session, 0.8 per session, 0.6, and so on. Okay, so this might be a helpful way to understand the binge behavior, because if you're watching a lot of movies on average in each session, then you're a binge style watcher. So let's go and look at this data and try to understand it a little bit better. So I'm going to go over to plot, and I'm going to look at the average session movies that I just created. And then I'm going, well, I already see something interesting, which is basically there's this kind of like first hump here, averaging around 0.75 with a big spike around 1. And then it kind of tapers off, and then there's these other spikes here, one around 2, but maybe this kind of distribution around 2.5, a spike around 3, spike around 4, and so on. But an average is just north of 1.5 here. So this is starting to look like a decent cutoff between, maybe the set of users who are trying to watch one, and maybe they, end up with fewer sometimes. And then the set of who are watching basically more than one in each session. And so let's add a new value to create our segment. So we're going to call it segment, and we can just do a simple if statement. So if that average session movies is greater than 1.5, whoops, Then we're going to call that user binge, and otherwise we're going to call them casual. Okay, since I'm in the plot, I have to hit run query. It's not really going to affect my plot. Okay, let's go back to our examples. We see that that segment is stored on each example. And we're going to be using this segment later when we look at churn. And we'll show you how to use a segment in analysis. But today we basically learned how to do a match, split, combine, followed by another one that uses some aggregate data, and use that to create a new value called segment based on some analysis we did in the plot. I hope that helps.